been something that's pretty much I've done my entire life. I remember being 7 years old, hanging around my dad while him and his buddies are having their drafts, and just how fun that was, how much of a good time it was, getting my first money team at 11 years old and really just getting into it. And, football's always been one of my favorite sports. So it's just nice to be able to play fantasy, especially being a Chiefs fan for a long while. We have not been good.
I'm sorry.
So it kind of made football season a lot better to watch other players. I remember going to a Chiefs game when I was 12 years old or something like that, and Demaryius Thomas or Brandon Marshall on the Denver Broncos just running past us, and me in my full Chiefs gear just screaming and hollering for him to score a touchdown because he's on my fantasy team. Literally, there are Chiefs fans sitting next to me like, what is this kid doing?
I'm surprised you didn't get kicked out of Arrowhead. Roasted in a barbecue.
They didn't ban you from the barbecue?
When that game happened, we were literally sitting 4 rows behind the Chiefs bench. I definitely got a couple looks from some coaches. What in the world is this kid doing right now? But yeah, like I said, I've always had a passion for it, and we finally, myself and some of the other guys at the Skew podcast, we finally decided hey, this is something we love. We want to share our knowledge, our skills with other people and try to make other people good at it, because it is definitely a difficult thing to kind of master and just get to know and play. Because if you don't do it and you're not invested in it, then it is kind of hard for the casual person to pick it up. So that's something that we definitely try to do, is make it so the casual person can understand and kind of get involved, so that then maybe they can develop that passion that we have.
And what would be your advice for newcomers? I know I was in the league last year, and it was a former coworker of mine, but everybody else in the league were friends. So I was the one outsider. So when certain teams were just terrible and not going to make the playoffs or just not going to win, period, and they had a fire sale, they wouldn't trade to me even though I had better picks, and they traded to other guys. What would you tell some newcomers to avoid when going into a league with other people?
Yeah, that's definitely tough, especially when you're going into a league like that, when you're playing with a bunch of guys who already know each other and they don't really know you, so they're a lot more reluctant to kind of trade with you and work with you. Something that I would definitely advise is trying to get to know those people and maybe trying to do some trades and stuff with them a little earlier on before it becomes a fire sale, because in fantasy football, once a team starts doing a fire sale, I personally think that's kind of messed up, unless it's a dynasty or a keeper league. But if it's a standard redraft league, then I think it's messed up to have a fire sale, because you are tanking to allow somebody
for no
else
reason
to win. Which
it was a PPR league.
Bad. What'd you say?
It was a PPR league too. Somebody gave up Michael Thomas for nothing.
Scenarios. That's one of those scenarios where it's come on now, this isn't cool. And, maybe that's something that you bring up to the commissioner if you play with him another year. Be like, hey, look, I didn't really appreciate how this team just had a fire sale at the end, or maybe you just get in there with them and you just start sending them trade requests, and eventually maybe they'll work with you, or sometimes you just get some boneheads that just won't want to work with you at all, and at that point it just becomes significantly harder for you to win.
Yeah, I experienced all that. The commissioner was also playing in the league, and he benefited from the fire sale. So
that's trash.
I'm glad I'm not in that league anymore. It was
that seems like a corrupt league.
It really was. Everybody was against me, but I literally had I had the lowest number of points against me, and I was the highest scoring team in the league. The highest scoring point average. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I had Nick Chubb right when he caught fire.
You did good then.
I was mad though, because I got screwed. I got screwed royally. I felt like the Saints. I gave away Derrick Henry, and then he had that huge game, and I was just pissed. Like I got robbed of a championship.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. So you kind of talked about, how you started, as a kid and stuff like that, and now where you're at now, doing a podcast, sharing your expertise. But like in the middle of that time, like when was the first moment when you were like, I'm actually like good at this?
I would say it was when I was still kind of playing with all my dad's friends, when we're all throwing $50 into this, and someone the year prior had said that they weren't going to come back, and no one had taken the spot yet. And normally my dad and I would just run a team together, but he said, all right, it's your turn. And so when I got my first team, that I put 50 of my own dollars in for, and actually had some success and made the playoffs, I was like, wow, actually I could really take this and I could really move forward with this, man. I could be good at this. And that just kind of started that, like, during the off season, I'm going to do research. I'm going to figure out. I'm going to do mock drafts. I'm going to do all these different things to try to make myself better so that I can come back in the next year even more prepared, and just dominate.
What's your over and under on mock drafts you've done in your life? What would you put the over under on?
In my life?
Yeah.
I've probably completed 10,000 mock drafts in my life.
Damn.
Oh my God.
I would say easily every single year I probably do 1,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
And as far
I will want that. What were you saying?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I mean, especially once it comes that, because the first league that I'm in, we draft in very early August, like the first weekend in August, because that's when we all can get together. So I'm probably doing at least 2 to 3 mock drafts a day the whole month of July, and then probably about 4 to 5 mock drafts a day in August. And I found over the time of doing this, it's significantly easier to do these if you're using the app Sleeper, because you can just hop in yourself and the AI will just pick for the other team. So you're not on like a ESPN mock draft where it takes an hour and a half to complete. I mean, I can complete 2 mock drafts during my lunch break if I really wanted.
That's
cool.
fantastic.
That's good to know.
I'm gonna keep that in mind. But as far as drafting goes, what would you say was your biggest whiff in the first round, and what was your biggest steal?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Ooh, that is a very good question. Definitely one of my biggest whiffs. This one still hurts. When I took Giovanni Bernard in the first round, the backup running back for the Cincinnati Bengals, back when he was the running back for that team. I think I took him like 9th overall.
Oh, no.
When I took him, I was just flustered. Everyone said he was supposed to be a first-round pick, but I wasn't really feeling it. And literally, the 3 picks that I wanted all went right before me. I took him, and I'm pretty sure he got hurt that year, and he was just a complete and utter bust for me. It was awful. Now, if I'm talking steal, the first round is definitely a lot harder to get a steal, but I would say last year was probably my biggest steal when I was able to get Tyreek Hill in like the 3rd round, and then I was able to get Patrick Mahomes in the 12th.
And those are your guys? Damn.
And they were my guys. So, that was even better.
You were really winning last year. You had a good year.
Yeah, I won that league. Alvin Kamara was my running back. I mean, we had a good year.
I had Kamara last year too. That saved my season. Oh man, him and Drew Brees.
So I've listened to your pod, and you guys go into some data and stuff too. So I'm just wondering, like, how much of your strategy is like, data and stats versus, feel and eye test and experience?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, because I've gotten into this debate with one of our co-hosts, Big Man Mike, plenty of times where I'll read some data at him and he'll be like, it's not all about data. Stats don't tell you everything. you have to go by other things. And he kind of comes from that idea of, the data's not everything.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, I believe that the data's not everything. Watching the game tape, watching how these players actually interact, how they move around on the field, the plays they're involved in, what kind of routes are they running? Were these successful routes? Did the quarterback, when they were targeted, was it, 30 feet above their head and they were throwing it away? Or was it something where the wide receiver actually dropped it, or they could have caught it, they just made the wrong cut and the route was wrong, or something like that? But I definitely am someone who uses this advanced data, uses the advanced metrics to my benefit, because a lot of people haven't really started to use this advanced data, and I truly believe that the advanced data can take things and make it seem as if things that you initially thought are now not true. So, for example, Derrick Henry last year, if you look at his end of the year only, when, like you were saying earlier, when he had those massive games, a lot of people this year are very high on Derrick Henry because of those, and they think they're going to continue. But if you look at the actual data, when he played the Jaguars were already out of it. They were supposed to be Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah.
And here they are, already out of it. They've had injuries on the defense. Blake Bortles is still bad. And their defense was already starting to crumble. And it was a matter of time, and Derrick Henry just happened to explode that night. It happened to be his night. Marcus Mariota couldn't really throw the ball at that point. But if you look earlier in the season, he was getting 18 to 20 touches and only putting up 50 yards. So you have to kind of break that down and break down into the consistency and how these players actually performed instead of just looking at the box score. I believe there's more data that can be had from just the box score itself.
Yeah, and I think, some of that comes down to Phil, too, because it's like, if you're evaluating that in terms of, like, do I want to draft this guy, then probably not. But if you, looking at the waiver wire, you might say boom or bust, go for it. We'll see what he has this week.
Yeah, especially on the waiver wire. There's a lot of feel in that. Like, you can take what they did last week, and then you can use some data and analysis for their matchup this week. But you also have to just look at how they were involved. Watch the game. Be like, wow, okay, this guy's actually getting involved. This is someone the team's going to continue to use, and feel definitely plays a part of it. And, even when you're drafting, feel definitely plays a part of it. You can be in a situation where it's like in our league that we just got done with, Dalvin Cook, for example, he hasn't played a whole lot. An interesting stat is that Leonard Fournette, someone who the community doesn't really like because he's always hurt. Well, Leonard Fournette's played more games than Dalvin Cook comparatively in their careers, which you wouldn't think that. And people think Dalvin Cook is going to be a
everyone's high on him right now.
I'm one of them. I'm not going to lie. I'm one of them. But the thing is he is someone who I can use all the data I want, but I have that gut feeling that the offense that he's in is going to be good. The offensive coordinator is going to use him. He, in college, was a very good running back. That kind of just feeling you have about a player. And like I tell a lot of people is, especially when you're in the draft, you have to get your guys at some point. You can't just always just wait. At some point, you might have to reach a little bit and get the guys that you personally like and that you want on your team from that feeling. And, hopefully the data backs them up as well.
I'm glad you got to that when you talked about goal for your guys, because at one point last year, what saved me is I reached for the LA Rams defense. I took them before I took my second. I think I took a second quarterback. But what's your stance on defense and special teams, and where you should draft them?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a very good question. A lot of people, a good amount of people, I'll say, the way they draft is they kind of draft their starting lineup and then kind of work on their bench after that. And a DST is a part of the starting lineup. I personally will never spend higher than a 12th round pick on a defense, because if you look statistically, defenses almost never really perform year over year. There's so much volatility. They change
so often. There's so many different moving pieces. It's not like a wide receiver like Cooper Kupp got hurt and now he's playing football again.